One. Good morning. Good morning, United Kingdom. Good morning to everybody. And this lovely, lovely Monday morning, straight after the famous 9/11. I was discussing on the weekend that 9/11 has become famous for many things. I mean, not least, obviously, the airplane attack on the New York Twin Towers, but generally, it's become quite an important day. After so many years, we have the American troops that have left Afghanistan, and the Afghanistan Taliban have decided to form their new parliament and constitution on 9/11. A very symbolic day, I would say, 20 years on. And we've got a lot of other important things, but let's keep it simple. Just say it's a new morning, new lookout. Hopefully, we don't expect anything else like a 9/11 in the future, but we can never tell. We hope for the best, plan for the worst, as I say. Well, the topic for today is about risk. And the risk is, can you actually buy properties from an LPA receiver? It's a topic that needs a bit of knowledge, and we're going to go into the knowledge of what LPA receivers can and cannot do, and if you're buying a property from them, is it legitimate? You know, that's the first concern. Are you actually buying from somebody who has the right to sell? Because there may be an issue where the LPA receivers did not have a right to sell. We'll discuss that later on. At the same time, we have the saying of the week. Again, very poignant. It is better, what's the word? That's right. Done is better than perfect. And I think because I don't think I'm a Virgo, but I've been told I'm a Virgo. We're perfectionists, apparently. So we like everything to be correct and proper. I've grown not to expect perfection. I think that comes with maturity, where you realize there is nothing out there that's going to be perfect. Everything that we do is flawed. The only thing that's perfect on the planet is humankind themselves, the creation of human, rather. When you see a child born and you see the intelligence that a child has in working things out, in behavior, in a child's psychology, then you get to realize there's only one perfection, and the perfection is that which has been created by the Almighty. Everything else needs a service, needs a test, needs to get thrown out once in a while. So, talking about things that need to be serviced, we have our famous Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, waiting in the backstage, I think. Good morning, Lakhi sir. Good morning to you.
Good morning, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Excelente. You've got a sound like a sharp tool on Monday morning. A gentleman who's known for his cutthroat ability when it comes to dealing with property. That's why he's known as Lakhi Singh, the property fixer. Well, there you are, you're back again. Right. So Lakhi Singh, okay, you've got, are you back again? Right. So you keep vanishing, sir. Is there a reason you keep? Oh, I'm vanishing now. You're muted, Lakhi Singh.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, you're back. Right, sir. So, the topic for today is, are there risks in buying from an LPA receiver? So, a lot of people probably don't even understand what LPA receivers are, what they can do. So the question is there a risk? Do we find that there are risks in buying? Are they just as safe as buying from an estate agent? What is their authority? And the topic of the week, or the saying for the week, it is better done than perfect. Now, as I usually do, I like to talk about the topic or the saying of the week first, then I go over to the topic. So, Lakhi Singh, what do you say to that? Is it better done than perfect? Lakhi Singh, you are muted again, sir.
I'm just saying that depends on the circumstances. In certain circumstances, it's better to do things, get them done. It doesn't really take much planning to make a cup of tea, for example. So yeah, better done than perfect. In other instances, if you're doing a large project, sometimes the better you plan things, the better the outcome. So there's a bit of a balance there between action, delivery,
Okay.
planning. But it is actually
Excellent.
there's two fundamental approaches to project management, for example. When you're
Wow.
developing
I like it
software,
when you start talking project management.
one's called rapid application development, which is you just sort of, and you just basically do it iteratively, and it's a lot more innovation involved, but you're just doing everything
By the fly.
Yeah, by the fly. And the other one is the waterfall methodology, where you plan everything ahead of time, organize it, have a process, and then you review it, and then you improve it. It's more like a stepped approach.
Water what? What do you call it?
Waterfall.
Waterfall. Excellent.
Yeah.
Why do they call it waterfall, sir?
I think it's more because the waterfall goes like that, then the water sort of runs and it falls again like that. So it's more of a stepped approach.
Very
it's not
nice.
probably the perfect analogy, but nevertheless,
okay,
you get the gist.
Right. So one is the waterfall technology, or the terminology for project management, where things are all planned stepwise. And the first one was what? The
Rapid application development.
Rapid application development. I like that. So it seems like you're a very learned person when it comes to project development and management. Is that right? Am I right?
Well, up to a point. I did quite a lot of large sort of rollouts of websites and software, etc., for large corporations over the last.
Which one do you? Which technique did you use? Was it the waterfall, or was it the rapid? Rapid. What was it you called it? Rapid growth technology.
Rapid
application. rapid application.
Called
Okay.
called rapid application development. That's right.
Right, rapid application development. Right. So, so which do you prefer then, Lakhi Singh? What do you find comes more naturally to you? Are you a waterfall guy or a rapid application
I think
development?
I'm a fine mix of the two, because if you're
Excellent.
too rapid, it all depends on the project and what you're trying to achieve. So I think if you're looking for innovation, innovation can occur in both sets, sometimes being more organized in a project and spending time planning and thinking it through. So it all depends on timelines as well. When you're looking for large organizations, there's a requirement to hit a certain deadline, and using the waterfall approach sometimes might take 6 months more to be able to get the project done. So you really got to understand the technique and its pliability and see really which way around you can create the right match. Sometimes you might have a mix of rapid application development in the beginning of a project,
Okay.
and then move more into making it more processy once you've got something fundamental to work with, or vice versa. You could actually make it more processy. Once you've got the basic platform up and running, you can then tinker with it. So it all depends on what you're trying to do. So
Excellent.
certain projects which are more hardware orientated, or setting up a system that's more reliant upon getting the hardware set up, you don't really require rapid application development for that. That's more going to be waterfall because it's usually predefined. Whereas if you're trying to come up with an innovation, having a team of experts together, putting them together in a room and coming up with innovations and quickly sometimes also helps to create some fluidity in the project. So there's no straightforward answer in terms of whether it's you want something done or you want it perfect. There's always once something's done, you might think, actually, to make it better, I could have possibly used the waterfall method, and vice versa. So no easy answer. It all depends on what you're trying to do.
Excellent. As always, Lakhi cutting the topic with a sharp surgical knife so that we're left totally confused about which way to go. But I would say, I think both, after listening to you, both possibly make sense. Right, let's go on to the topic, Lakhi Singh. You're doing thousands of transactions a month. So, first of all, do you come across transactions which involve the LPA receivers?
Yes, most definitely. Come across them at least 2 or 3 times in a day across clients' problems or issue they need resolving.
Okay. And I mean, are these properties all for sale? Are they merely a stopgap? What's the situation?
Well, typically we end up dealing with properties from receivers from the client coming to us, which is quite rare.
Are you making those bird sounds, Lucky? Because it sounds like you're extremely talented. You're making
Influx of
two
parakeets
sounds.
come over.
Pardon?
Influx of parakeets, I think, that have flown over from India.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, sir. Yes.
To brighten up our morning.
Yes.
So just remind me of the question. So I got distracted.
Question was, sir, do you come across properties being sold by LPA receivers? You said yes. So I asked, then, is there a difference between buying an LPA property from an LPA receiver or normal aid, or is it special? Do you need to go through some special vetting technique or something?
What happens typically, there's 3 ways that we would get properties with point from a receiver. So number 1 is the client realizes he's got a problem with the property being taken over, and they're not really happy with it, and they want to instruct us to help them to take the properties back. So that's a typical way that we tend to find out about properties which are in receivership. The second way that we find out about it is typically estate agents or surveyors or insolvency practitioners trying to put them on the market. And if you're looking to buy properties either through auction or otherwise, you inadvertently find out they're from receivers. But most people wouldn't really know necessarily what that actually means in terms of, what's the context. Well, those are the two key ways which LPA receivers are touched upon by a end user of a property or end buyer of a property, or by a client. I think those are the 2 main ones.
Okay, so the question is still unanswered. You made it very simplistic. But number 1, okay, does the LPA receiver have any powers of sale? It's the first question. They've taken a property over, okay. We're not going to go into the details of how they have a property in their control, because that's a separate question. I'll ask that at the end. Do they have the powers of sale? Yes or no?
They most definitely do have the power of sale, yes.
Okay. So if they have the power of sale, then why is it that properties are in LPA receivership for months at a time? What is the task of an LPA receiver if they're appointed? Who appoints them? If they are appointed, what is their task? What are they there to do? Can you explain that? Who appoints the LPA receiver first? Can you just shed a bit of light on that, please?
Receivers are appointed by 1 second.
Yes. Yes. Well, while you're thinking about it, we'll give a shout out. Mandy says a big shout out to everyone in Manchester. Mandy, that's very sad you've left us out of your shout out. Do you want to send everyone a shout out? I'll send everyone a shout out from me, and then I'll wait for Mandy to amend her shout out so I can be included. Yes, Lakhi. Are you muted? Where are you? Are you muted? Are you having a breakdown?
No, I'm just trying to multitask.
You're trying to multitask, right? Excellent. Not exciting when it's on a live show, but let's see. I hope you're not going to be doing anything else that's awkward or lewd. Yes, sir. Hello? Okay, well, let's ignore Lakhi Singh for now. Well, I'll explain some bits of the LPA receiver and the fact that an LPA receiver can be appointed, but it's not always a must that an LPA receiver has the right of sale. So a very important point. And where do you find that out? Well, it's a varying question, but it's definitely a question that immediate bank claims, which is one of the service lines that Lakhi Singh operates, can answer. And if they have the power of sale, only then will they have the ability to actually present the property to any buyer out there. If they don't, all they have the power to do is literally collect the rentals, and collecting the rentals from the property can be maintained. But then the question arises, what is done with the money? Where does the money go? It's a separate topic for a separate day, but generally LPA receivers can only sell properties if the powers are expressly conferred. Now, if we go on from that, you have a property that you see. For the buyer, it's neither here nor there, because the property most likely will be on the market through a local agent. And if the property is on the market with a local agent, we assume the property has been signed up for sale. Now, signing the property up for sale is another question. Does the LPA have the power to put a property up for sale in absence of the mortgagor's permission? There's a big myth out there regarding LPA receivers and who they are acting for. So for that, we can try and go back to Lakhi if he's available, if he's not doing his domestics. Lakhi Singh, are you now available, or are you still in your domestic chores?
Yeah, I'm ready now.
Excellent. Right, so the question to you, sir. What gives an LPA receiver the right of sale then? How do you confirm that they have the authority to sell a property, and how does the estate agent put that property up for sale? Is it different to any other sale?
So the way it works is the bank appoints the receivers. The receivers send out letters to the borrower of the property, and then notifying them that they're going to be appointed. And then they take the property over in terms of the keys or changing the locks. And technically then the contract allows them the power of sale. And if they are an insolvency practice, or they are a surveying firm, or they're a law firm, and then they go through certain protocols of appointing an estate agent, or doing a certain amount of advertising to sort of show that they are trying to optimize the sale of the property, and through a transparent process. And
okay.
then
Who are they optimizing for their own commissions, or for who?
So this is a slightly technical question. So in legal terms, they're meant to be acting for the interest of the borrower, the person taking out the mortgage. But in actual terms, they usually end up representing the bank, because technically that's the organization that's paying them. So there's a conflict of interest.
I would beg to differ with you on that, sir, because you're stating that they start off acting for the borrower, but then it ends up that they act for the bank. How is that possible? How can you all of a sudden? It's like me saying, I am acting in this show the Lakhi Singh, the property fixer show, the drive time live session. And by the end of this session, it is it's the Two Ronnie show. Is that possible? Can that happen? Are the banks that short in their processes?
Unfortunately, that's the way of the world. That's what happens in this particular situation, because even though everything on paper points to what should be done in a particular way, the way things are actually orchestrated is completely different on what's on paper, and there's very little precedence to set the matter straight either. So there isn't anybody that's really gone out and challenged this particular law to adjust it or improve it, or to ensure that it is done in a way that's actually represents the borrower as opposed to the bank.
Yeah, but I'm going to beg to differ with you, because I'm going to say, doesn't surely the confusion lie in the definition of the agent? Now, in the Law Property Act, the definition of agent is not as you would expect of an agent who you appoint to sell the property on behalf of you, but this is an agent who is in replacement of you. So the example is Party A is appointed as an agent for Party B. In normal circumstances, Party B is in control because Party A is the agent for Party B, and therefore the powers remain with Party B. In the Law Property Act, and in the definition of agent in the Law Property Act, the agent, Party A, is now a replacement of Party B. So therefore, in all matters of correspondence, of formalities, the bank will speak to Party B as if they were talking to Party A. That's a major difference, isn't that, Lakhi Singh? Isn't that where the problem lies, in the definition?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I'm not necessarily technical on the matter, but I would say that they've given authority to another party to act for them, and when the agent takes over, then I think they're somewhat misguided in terms of what they think they can do.
Well, I agree with that point. Misguided LPA receivers, they do lots of things which are out of the law, I would say, in some respects unlawful. And I totally agree with the point you make, that some appointed LPA receivers decide that their relationship with the property is one where they do not need to follow the law, and in terms of law, a law of repossession and law of control of the asset. I can give you a very simple example of this point, and you can confirm whether this is true. I heard that one of the LPA receivers actually threatened to change the locks of a property even whilst the tenants were living in the property. Is that lawful?
Well, to be honest, I don't really know whether that's lawful or whether it's criminal, but I would say that it's definitely not moral to do that.
Wow. morality. So what you're saying is the LPA receivers are and can act immorally once it comes to exerting or to assuming their role as the agent. Now, isn't that a fundamental flaw? Because if you've been a landlord and a property sort of portfolio businessman. Have you ever done that? Did you ever decide that you would forcibly take control of one of your assets? You've got a tenant. I'm sure you must have had tenants who were arrears in their mortgage, in their rental payments, or tenants that were failing to respond, or certain important tasks like a gas safety certificate. Did you have tenants who were being awkward, Lakhi?
I think I've probably seen every type of situation. Yeah. Difficult tenants. Yeah.
And did you have the authority? Did you find yourself itching to act outside the law, immorally, as you say, to threaten your tenants with a lock change without a court order?
Well, with certain tenants which were completely out of order, I think in a human level, yeah, I could have probably thought, okay, well, they deserve the locks to be changed, but I never really practically thought of actually doing it. No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the question is, you couldn't do it, or you decided not to do it?
You're not. It's illegal to do that, and you could get.
And I would say morally incorrect as well.
Yeah, morally, legally, criminally.
Wow. And the LPA receivers, as I said, are examples where they have threatened tenants that they would change the locks of their properties. Now, that is acting outside the law unlawfully. That's maybe where LPA receivers seem to lose track or focus of that which is permissible and that which is impermissible. Is that right, Lakhi? Would you say that?
That's correct. Yeah.
And what do you say then in terms of properties now that have been taken over by let's suppose they've been taken over by LPA receivers and they want to sell these properties. So one of the things we discussed is that it is important that they have the right, that they have the powers conferred on them to sell a property. Is that right, Lakhi?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And without those powers, can they really sell a property?
Nope.
So is there a risk then in buying from an LPA receiver if they don't have the powers? Can you ask an LPA receiver to show you the right or the powers they have to sell a property?
You can ask them, but they'll give it to you. A different matter.
Pardon?
I said you can ask them, but whether they give you any information on that is a different matter. They won't give you anything on that.
So, okay, so that's one of the first risks, isn't it? There's a risk in buying from an LPA receiver if their documentation is not in order. Is that correct? Can we assume that?
Well, there's definitely a risk because even if property's been in receivership, we've got expertise to disinstruct the receivers. So we've been able to help the clients or the borrower, landlord, to get the properties back. So yeah, there is a high risk that you're dealing with the wrong party, which is receivers. You should be probably dealing with us.
Wow. So what you're saying is LPA receivers can't always sell the property.
That's right.
Okay, if they can't always sell the property, then how do you go about buying a property from the LPA receiver without having the risk that they don't have the right to sell? How would you, what's the technique, Lakhi? How do you avoid the risk? Is it better just to avoid buying a property off an LPA receiver?
Yeah, I think it's a higher risk. Might actually instruct solicitors, but receivers don't always have the full control, because there've been lots of circumstances whereby we've been able to get the property sold directly with the buyer, sorry, the owner of the property, not receivers, or we've been able to structure a finance package and agree it with the bank directly.
Okay.
So all is not as it seems, I would say.
All is not as it seems. I like that. So it's a bit of a smoke and mirrors, a bit of a minefield of different unknowns, as Donald Rumsfeld would say. Donald Rumsfeld, as you will remember, is the ex Secretary of Defense, I think, to the American president, ex-Air Force, and extremely fond of using new gadgets and weapons. So, okay, we let's take a situation though. You get a good deal from an LPA receiver. Aren't you going to be somewhat, you know, motivated or sweetened, as they say, to at least buy some of the properties if you're getting them at a good discount?
Yeah, I think anybody that's looking for a good deal is probably willing to.
How are you doing that, Lucky? Is that you? Are you sort of like you got a ventriloquist trick or something? You able to make those bird sounds without moving your lips?
I think there's a lot of migration going on this time of year.
Right. Okay. Right. Yes. So continue, sir. Yes.
So what was the
You
question
get
again?
enticed with an outfit. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine, but I just need to
Yeah.
repeat the question.
Okay. What I'm saying is you have a property that's discounted.
Yeah.
It's at a very, very lucrative price being sold by the LPA receiver. Are you not going to be enticed in buying it, even if you think there's a risk that he doesn't have the right or the powers to sell that property?
Well, most people wouldn't be aware of the risks because they're not well known or commonly documented. So yeah, I think the common investor probably look at it on the face of it thinking that it's a bit of a done deal.
Yeah.
But they start delving a bit deeper into purchasing something, they may find that it's going to be a aborted sale.
Okay. And how will it become an aborted sale, sir? Will it be the
So,
actual mortgagor that has a right to take up a claim against the LPO receiver or the bank for illegally selling the property? Where did that come from?
so I think it probably wouldn't be for that reason. I think it'd be more from the reasons that either the borrowers negotiated through an organization like us a deal with the bank, or that we've been able to structure a finance package for the client so all the debt to the bank can be paid off, including all the costs, or that we've found a buyer that the bank's satisfied with, and they're happy to receive payment and get all their debt paid off, and they're happy with the sale to go ahead with one of the owners or the borrower's buyers.
Mhm.
So for any of those three reasons, the sale could get aborted and the receiver's sale would not go ahead.
Mhm. And how does one, would it be the solicitors who would undertake the responsibility for checking the papers or the documentation to confirm that the LPA receivers actually have the right or the powers of sale? Well, where would that get checked? Even if you're innocent and you don't know, wouldn't surely there be a process where the solicitors acting for you would do their due diligence to ensure that a property is really able to be sold by LPA receivers?
I would say that most solicitors are usually, because they're part of the banking process, tend to be quite compliant working with the receivers, and they wouldn't really be checking to see their level of ability to deliver. So that may be a bit of a misnomer.
Wow. Okay. So, what do you find then is the best technique to be buying properties from an LPA receiver to be then?
So the best technique to buy from LPA receivers is to come and talk to me and say, got a property in receivership. I've got access to the owner of the property. What do you suggest we do to be able to get the property purchased? And I would structure a way of the buying the property directly from the buyer and cutting out the receivers and
Excellent.
trying to negotiate no fees to the receiver if possible as well, because technically there's not much that they do in terms of what they get paid for.
Wow. Okay. So you heard it here first. If you want to buy a property from the LPA receivers, come to Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, and he will organize the purchase for you, making sure all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. Is that right, sir?
That's right. That's correct, yeah.
Excellent. Right. So, Lakhi Singh, coming back to the statement for today, for the week, that is, it's better than never at all. Um, done is better than perfect. It's probably more accurate. Done is better than perfect. Are you a perfectionist, sir?
I think I am, depends on what it is. If it's to do with website development or getting a property deal in place or fixing a problem or a business problem, yeah, I think I'd like to think I am a perfectionist because I don't like to get it wrong. So I'd normally be putting all my headspace and the team's headspace, as well as any external resources, into sort of understanding the crux of the problem and looking at what's the perfect storm to get it solved.
Excellent. And software development, you do that as well as one of your company services. Is that right?
Well, we have a lot of internal software projects, and my background is
Internal
software and
software.
website development. So I do like to get involved if I can. That's not really my day-to-day role, no. But I do like to, how do you say, dabble in the areas that I have some expertise in. Yeah.
Excellent. So you do offer that as a service?
We can do if somebody wants it. We've got a team.
All right. Okay. So that's new because I don't see that anywhere in your literature or on your website. Is this something you've just developing now, or?
Well, as a fixer, somebody's got an internet problem or a website problem, and we can fix a business problem for somebody, and we've got the expertise, be happy to look at it.
Excellent. So it's a bit broader than property. It extends to everything in business. A bit like a placebo gym, fixing things
Well,
for people.
it's not an area that I offer out publicly to people, but if there's an opportunity that arises where we've got expertise in a particular area and we've got the team, then we would actually look at it. Yeah.
Excellent. Hey. So, what's your final, on a balance of probability? Is it a good idea if you find that there are properties in your neighborhood or in your circle of friends that have been taken over by LPA receivers? Would that be something to pursue in your mind, or would it be something to leave alone? Don't touch it. It's too complicated.
I would say if it's somebody's been approached by LPA receivers for a property, I would say best not to touch it, because best not to deal with an area that you don't really understand. So the better thing to do is give me the details, and I'll be able to scrutinize the deal and work out what would be the best way of unstructuring it and then restructuring it for them to purchase.
Right. And what's normally a good formula for purchasing from LPA receivers? Is there a good sort of like benchmark?
Yep, it's quite simple. If you've got access to cash and you wanted to buy a particular property that a receiver has and it suits your portfolio, and you know the buyer, but it's gone into LPA receivership, then that's a
Just a what? Hello? I think you've jammed up, sir. You're frozen somewhere, I think. Lakhi Singh? Well, while we have Lakhi Singh frozen, which is not always a bad thing, having frozen Lakhi Singh, you can always regenerate him in maybe 100 years and bring him back as a dinosaur. I'm not quite sure about cryogenics. I think that's what they call it, the freezing of humans. Not that Lakhi falls into the human race. Lakhi Singh is probably more of a Superman in terms of our worldly perception. More of a bit of a Superman who flies around saving people from their property problems. You've got him back now. Lakhi Singh, yeah, you froze away there. I thought maybe you were being cryogenically frozen for the future. Any chance of that happening to you or properties?
well, you never know.
Yes?
I said you'll never know what's possible, what's around the corner.
That's true, sir. Right, okay. So we're actually now at the last few minutes of the show this morning. Can you give us a summary of what you feel the LPA receivership and the sale of property from LPA receivers all encompasses? And people should come to you. What's the process?
Okay. So if you're a landlord or a property investor wanting to get involved in property, but keep on hearing the word receivers or getting a property from a receiver, there are a lot of myths around what receivers do and what you can get, rather than to be in a situation where you are somewhat thinking you're going to get a good deal from a receiver. It's a misnomer. So it's not something that is real. It's just something that's an urban myth. So if you want that deal, then if you've got access to the owner of the property and you've got access to the cash yourself to potentially purchase, then the better thing to do is us to actually bring the details of the owner of the property to us, and we can structure a deal which works for that borrower and for you, and we'll be able to cut out the receivers by orchestrating a deal directly with the bank and making sure that the receivers actually do not get into the way of the sale, hence reducing your risk altogether from losing a potential deal, which is also going to be open to them selling it to their own database, to their own contacts.
Yeah.
So this allows you, the buyer, to take control, be in the driving seat, get your cake and eat it, as well as letting the borrower have enough to be able to satisfy the sale prices they require.
Excellent. And with the item or the understanding that LPA receivers do act in good faith or integrally, would they still want to sell a property cheaper to us if we were trying to buy it? Would they sell the property at the market price? What's their general instructions? Are they required to achieve the best possible price for the bank, or are they required to achieve redemption only?
They are required to get redemption only, so hence the reason that our services are a godsend to any borrower who's actually come up for receivers, because our service is focused in on a very transparent process to actually help the borrower out of this very difficult predicament, which is very little known as a technical area of law, even by solicitors or any other party. So us being the leaders with the Law of Property Act 1925 allows them to be in a situation which gives them the best chance to actually optimize the price that they can actually sell their property for, and not be at the behest of a very difficult situation, or in terms of merely just getting their redemption.
Well, okay, Lakhi, a lot of people we've been talking to, sending messages through, they say it's next to impossible to disinstruct an LPA receiver, in terms of the fact that they seem to feel that the LPA receivers are not going to back down once they've been appointed.
Well, this is like a really crazy thing, because I've been in situations where I've got £100 million fund, and you've got like top end fund managers and people with money who say these things, and literally within a week or two, I've managed to work with another buyer who's probably not as cash loaded as them, and structured a deal where the external buyer has been able to buy the property directly from the borrower and orchestrate the sale by the receivers not even being involved. So
Wow.
Definitely a huge an unknown by the general public about what is possible with the Law of Property Act 1925, and what's not possible, what is possible and what not possible. And we have the knowledge, experience and expertise where we've taken thousands of properties over the line to help those buyers or that borrower to ensure that they succeed in what they're trying to achieve.
So can solicitor, I mean, you raised a question there. I mean, isn't this something that a solicitor can do for a borrower? Or is it something that's out of their knowledge?
I think solicitors are a good resource overall for conveyancing and for general legal or commercial contracts. But when it comes to specific issues around the Law of Property Act 1925, it's very rare that they would have the expertise. The main reason being that they are part of the banking system. If you ever go and buy a property, the law firm is actually acting for the bank. So the question is, why would you want to bite the hand that feeds you as a law firm? You wouldn't. So it's very rare that any of them would want to get involved unless it's a bucket shop type solicitor, the bottom of a little village somewhere in the sticks that actually hardly does any conveyancing, and they'll look at it, but they'll charge you an arm and leg, and they won't get you a result. So if you want that, that's going to end you up in a no man's land with no ability for them to deliver. So the only way.
What you're saying, so what you're saying is, solicitors really don't act for their borrowers. They actually act for the bank in all matters, and they are not the right organization if you want to disinstruct the LPA receiver from the bank. Is that right?
I would say that's pretty much close to the truth. Yeah.
In the last 2 minutes, sir, last 2 minutes. So I want some words of wisdom from you in regards to today's topic. Is it a good idea to buy properties from an LPA receiver, first of all? And secondly, do LPA receivers generally have the powers of sale? And if they don't, how can you find out? Give us a summary. What is it best to do? Is it best just to sit down, ignore it, try and purchase it, but come through someone like yourself, Lakhi?
Okay. It's very, very simple. If you've got a Law Property Act receiver issue, then the first thing to do is to just type in Lakhi Singh property fixer into Google, and you'll find about 15, 20 different websites and social media platforms that we have. You can get in touch and come and meet with us for a half an hour consultation. Once we see the paperwork, understand what's going on, what the reality of the situation is compared to what you might perceive of it, we'll give you best direction.
Excellent.
And that's it. It's very simple.
Wow. Okay, there we are, as usual. Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, simplifying a complicated topic like the LPA receivers and should you buy properties from them. Again, another very informative hour with you, sir. We thank you. We praise your knowledge, your skill. You're like a rubber precision Swiss Army knife cutting through the quagmire of the topic, getting to the point. We thank you, sir, for your time and your knowledge. We will see you again at the end of the week with Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, and your drive time live session. Anything else you've got to say to close off today, sir?
So main thing to say is don't despair. Lakhi Singh, the fixer, is here. Any issues around a repossession, any keywords that you need to we look out for as N244, any issues around stopping a repossession, any issues around insolvency, IVAs, any issues about losing a business, any issues, especially around the Law Property Act 1925, then we've got 15 years of experience in terms of fighting receivers and the banks and working in your best interest. So we're the alternative property business solutions community as well on Facebook. So, follow us, work with us, and let's create the community and help people that are innocent to the ways of the world, with the ways of the banks and the ways of receivers. And let's help them to ensure that they don't lose their shirt to the bank.
Excellent, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. See you again Friday, Drive Time Live with Lakhi Singh.